So today we're going to hang out with DJ, and I'm going to throw it their way so they can get started, so we can learn how to fish a different way than maybe some of you guys have fished before. DJ, it's all you, bud.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm DJ Garland, Kentucky Fishing Line, and today we're going to learn about fly fishing. As Nancy likes to say, it's not actual flies that we're trying to catch. We're trying to catch fish. But a lot of people, they fish conventionally before. You probably bluegill fishing or bass fishing or catfishing before. Well, today we're going to talk about a different technique that you can use to catch all those fish too. So today we're going to talk about fly fishing. You've probably used a traditional fishing pole before. Everything that you can normally catch when you go fishing, you can also catch on a fly rod like we're going to use today. There's lots of misconceptions about fly fishing. One is that it's only for trout. So if you've seen fly fishing before, you've seen these guys whipping big fly rods back and forth and lines going everywhere, and it lands out there and they catch a trout. Well, yes, you can catch trout, but you can catch bass, you can catch bluegill, you can catch catfish, crappie, anything you've fished for, you can target with a fly rod too. So I'm going to try to talk about fly fishing today and try to take all the mystic away from it, okay? It's really, really simple. It's probably the laziest way to fish that there is. So when we talk about getting you into fly fishing, it's a sport that anybody can do. If you've got enough money to go out there and bass fish, if you've got enough money to have a tackle box and a normal conventional fishing boat, you can do fly fishing, okay? We're going to first start talking about everything you'll need. There's 6 basic things that you'll need when you start fly fishing, and we're going to try to stick to it so it kind of lays out in a list for you that you can easily remember. This is going to be recorded, and if you're not doing it, Nancy, you better be recording this. You can go back and watch it later, kind of pick up on some things you might have forgotten. But first thing we're going to talk about is the 6 things that you need. Just like with any other fishing, the first thing you'll need, number 1, is a fishing pole or a fishing rod, okay? So fly rods are different than your close face or your spinning rods or your bait casting rods. They're a little different. Let me get one. As all my rod flyers. All right, so with a normal fishing rod, we have a lure, we've got a reel on top, we've got the rod itself. Well, this rod and most fishing poles, if you've ever used, the weight of the lure is actually what throws the lure out there. With a fly rod, it's going to be a little different. With a fly rod, we've got this line, okay? And it's obviously a lot different than the line that you've used before. This fly rod is made to throw this fly line. When it loads up, when it bends, it's going to send this fly rod out, and it's going to send what you're going to be using, your little fly, on the end of it to where you want to fish. That's what you're actually going to catch the fish with. But when it comes to these rods, there's a few things you need to know. First off, there it is. Got my heady pin. First off, you need to know that rods in fly fishing are described as weights. All right. So anytime you see weight on a fly rod, that's just signifying how big of things you can throw. Fly rods go from all the way from a 1 weight to about a 16 weight. Neither one of these, 1s or 16s, you'll probably ever use, okay? These are really special. We're going to try to keep it simple today. Most of you getting started, the first rod you'll want is either a 4 to a 6 weight. Somewhere in that range is what most 90% of your fly fishing is going to be used on. You're going to use a 4 weight if you're trout fishing or bluegill fishing, all the way up to a 6 weight you can use for bluegill. Once you get to your bigger weights, like your 6 weight, then you're going to be targeting things like smallmouth bass or crappie. And we'll get into why that is in just a little bit. But starting out, just know that you want about a 4 to a 6 weight when you go looking for fishing poles. When you're fly fishing, these rods are a lot longer okay, than your typical fishing rods that you'll use. Usually, most fly rods are about 9 foot long, okay? 9 feet long. So you go to a store, just any kind of box store, they're not expensive. You can buy everything you need to fly fish in one little kit. And look for something between a 4 and a 6 weight and about 9 feet in length. All right, so that's rod. That's the one thing you need. So get that nice and raised. All right, second thing we'll need. Just like any fishing pole is useless unless you have a reel, okay? So we got a fishing reel, fly fishing reel. When it comes to fly fishing reels, when you're starting out, do not spend a lot of money on it, okay? We're going to look at some different ones in a little bit, but this little fly fishing reel right here, when you first start out, all it does is hold line. This big, heavy fly line, that's all you're actually doing. This reel holds line. There's got a few little nuances about them, but get you a cheap one to start out with. They're really, really not that important when you're starting out. All right, when it comes to reels, usually when you go and you buy a kit, that'll be the only one you'll need starting out. But some of them are designed for different line weights. So we have a 4-weight fly rod. Okay, so we got 4-weight rod. Question, what size fly reel do you need? And I'll wait for some answers. What we got, Nancy? Anybody got the answer yet? I know I'm asking them to do math. It's really complicated math. We got a 4-weight rod. What size reel do I need?
$169 for a fly rod. I think someone's trying to buy one.
Nah, you don't need to buy one that expensive.
Griffin says 4.
4, there you go.
Jackson says 4. Alex says 6, maybe.
There you go. So, reel. All right, so they all line up. And a lot of times when you get a 4-weight reel, it'll hold 5-weight line, it'll hold 6-weight line. So if you do end up getting bigger line or bigger rod later, usually that reel will work. And right now, that's all we're going to talk about, the reels. So we've done 2 so far. You need a fly rod and you need a fly reel. Well, next thing is what goes on, okay? Now, this will be by far the most complicated thing that I will talk about all day long, okay? Fly fishing is really, really simple, and it's as simple as you make it. But fly line is the most complicated part. If you do spend money, not $179 your first time, okay? Don't spend that much. But the first time you go out, you might be a little confused about number 3, and that's what goes on the reel, the line. All right. Now, this is kind of confusing because when you get your fly rod and your fly reel, you get it in a kit, you'll probably have all the stuff you'll need, but you need to put it on the reel. This fly line that you see, this nice colorful fly line, that's just one of 4 different kinds of line that's going to be on here. We're going to show you in a minute what all this is, but I'm going to list them so you kind of get an order. So the fly line that you actually see, the colored stuff, is actually called the fly line. When you talk to somebody and they're talking about different fly lines, that's the colored stuff that they're talking about. This fly line is the colored stuff. Behind that, actually the first thing that goes on the reel is another line called a backing. All right. The backing is only there for if you get a really, 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 really big fish on and he pulls all of this fly line off. So he's pulling, and all this line comes off. Well, if he hits the back of the reel, the line's going to break and you're going to lose that big fish. This fly line is usually only about 80 feet long. Some are even shorter than that in the little kits you'll get. So behind that, there'll be this little, usually a bright color, either white or a green or orange, and that'll be backing. It's just like if you go to a store and buy braided fishing line, if you've ever seen that cloth type braided fishing line before, that's all backing is. So when you have the line system, sorry, not good at spelling, system, you'll start off with backing. Then next on the fly reel will be the fly line. And then you'll get to what's called a leader. Leader. Now, in fly fishing, we have a leader, and that's probably the thing you'll work with the most. It's called a tapered leader because it goes from really, really fat down to really, really skinny. That's because it needs to be tapered, because when you throw all that fly line out, and we'll explain all this when we get out there and show you casting, that needs to be really, really thick at one end where it's close to the reel, and really, really small because you're going to want to tie a fly on it or a little lure a little bit later. We'll explain all this in a bit, but the last type of line actually ties into the leader, and it's called tip. I think there's two P's. Tip it. So when we go to change flies, change our lure here in a minute, every time we cut that off, we're making this leader small. So a leader, when you pull it out of package, so I've got fly line that's green on here, so I'm going to use my green marker, if you can see it, represent my fly line. My fly line's really, really, really thick. So the fly line's really thick. So that'll be the green one. We'll use the blue one to talk about the leader. The leader is going to be really thin. It's going to be fat up here where you tie it to the fly line, but as the leader goes, and these leaders might be, they might be 9 feet long. All right, you'll typically want to make them as long as your rod. So these 9-foot leaders, as they get further along, they get smaller and smaller. The reason for that is your fly might be the size of a dime, maybe even smaller than a dime. And if you're trying to tie it to this big old fishing line, it's not going to fit on there. So we have to have a leader to help us throw it out there. When we first get our leader, we can just tie our little bug, our little fly. Let's make a little fly here. We can just tie him on the end of the leader. But say we didn't do very good, all right? No fish like that bug, okay? So we change that bug. And when we do that, we end up cutting this line off. Then we put another little bug on. And eventually, we don't like that, and the line gets shorter and shorter. So in order to make this line long again, we've got to add the tippet. So the tippet is just extra little tiny line that's going to make our leader nice and long again. So I know it sounds confusing right now. Hopefully I'll make it a little easier when we actually go to the rods and reels and see them in a minute. All right, so starting with the rod. Then we got the reel. And then we got the line. Next thing we're going to need next thing, number 4, is the flies. So this is actually our lure, okay? If you've ever went bass fishing, you might use a crankbait, you might use a spinner bait. Well, in fly fishing, we typically use things that look like flies. Every fish that's ever born hatches out of an egg, and the first thing it eats is little plankton. All right, now we don't have any flies that are small enough to be plankton, but the bigger the fish gets, the bigger bug it's going to eat. And yes, they usually start out eating some kind of flying insect that lives in the water. So that's what we're trying to imitate. We're trying to imitate a fly or something a fish would eat. When it comes to flies, it's really simple. There's 3 categories. You have your dry flies. They call them dry because they stay dry. When you cast, they land on top of the water and they stay there, and the fish comes up and eats it. So these dry flies are top waters. All right, so that fly is going to stay on the top. The second, if you have a dry fly, The opposite of that would be a wet fly. So, wet fly. So wet flies, they end up in the water. So these are wet, under water. So those are underwater. There is one more type. For the most time, when you start off, that's what you're going to be using, one of those two. But we do have a third category called streamers. And that will be anything that is big, that looks like a minnow, that looks like a crawfish, something that the fish is going to eat. So we're going to say that looks like bait. All right, flies, really simple. You can get really complicated, but usually when you buy a fly fishing kit, the first kit you'll buy will probably come with a few flies that you'll get to use. All right, so that's all that you'll need to get you started as far as the fly, rod, and reel and line setup. There are a few other things. We'll go over here and actually look at some of the stuff that I use, and we'll explain all those things that we talked about and a few other little things that you'll need. All right, so Caleb, let's go on over and see my stuff. All right, so welcome to my stuff. When it comes to the fly rod, we kind of already talked about it. They're pretty simple. Just get you one that's 4 to 6 weight. Well, these reels, also pretty simple. This is a 4 or 5 weight reel. It could probably hold 6 if I wanted to. If you open it up, the only thing you really need to know is, one, it holds lots of line. And then on the inside, some of these have a drag. This reel is actually called a click and paw reel. So when you're fighting a fish and he starts to pull line out, that clicking is actually caused by these little triangles right here. Now, it doesn't add a lot of resistance, but when we have a resistance on a fish that's fighting us, we tend to call that drag. So those little triangles are going to keep him having a little tension on him, wears him down faster, and you catch the fish, hopefully. Then we have reels like this one. They're not click and paw. They're what's called a center drag system. Inside them, there are no triangles. But right here, this little break right here, and on the back, it's got this little knob where we can adjust it. We can turn it up and make it harder for the fish to get away, or we can loosen it up and make it easier for the fish to get away. We got a really, really big fish on. We don't want him breaking the line, so we'll put a little less pressure. All right, getting to the fly line system, right? Fly line, as we know, is the pretty colorful stuff that goes on the outside. On the inside, that's that backing. That backing, sometimes it's orange, comes in little things like this. As soon as you get your reel, put your backing on, then you put your fly line on, and then, if I can get it out, bear with me. So, might be hard to see, but I got this little bitty line right here, right? Little bitty line. Is as big as a frog's butt hair, right? So, frog butt hair right here. But as it gets closer to the reel, it gets pretty fat, all right? If it's not fat, it's not going to be able to tie to our fly line. So our fly line is not going to be able to attach if it's too small. It's going to end up cutting this, and when you're waving this fly line around, it's going to break. But if it's too big, then you get down to this end, and you can't tie a fly on if it's too big. So the main thing to know about the leader is it gets bigger, or sorry, it gets smaller as it gets farther away from the reel until it gets down to fly size. And that's going to matter in a second when we go over here. All right, so we got our different flies. We're starting with our dry flies. These are going to be the ones that sit on top of the water. cast them out there. Maybe they look like a bug that landed on the water. Maybe it looks like a grasshopper. Maybe it looks like an ant or a beetle or some kind of mayfly. A lot of you that live in western Kentucky or around big lakes probably saw a mayfly hatch, something that's going to trick them to eating a bug on the water. Then we go over to our wet flies. Now, wet flies are going to be flies that we use that go on under the water, okay? Most of the bugs that live the majority of their life, they're going to live underwater. That's what a fish normally eats. When a fish first forms, he starts off as an egg. They hatch out an egg. So a lot of other fish do like to eat those eggs too. So we got flies that look like eggs. Then most of you that conventional fish, you use a spinning rod or you use a closed face rod, you probably use something that looks like a worm. Well, we have flies that look like worms. We have flies so small because these bugs that they eat are so small that 3 of them could even fit on a dime. Now you might think we're catching minnows here, okay? We can catch really big fish on this. We can catch 5-6 pound fish on little bitty hooks that can fit on the size of a dime. But say you're a bass fisherman. You don't care anything about catching small fish. All you care about is catching really, really big fish. Well, that's where our streamers come in. Our streamers are our bait fish. Just like we have crankbaits that look like minnows, we have flies that look like minnows. Fish like to eat big fish. The bigger fly you use, probably the bigger fish you're going to catch. So we got all different kinds. We got them look like crawfish, look like big bait fish or big bluegill swimming through the water. So just like you would any other kind of fishing, you have flies for that too. So if you like bass fishing, if you like carp fishing, we have a way to catch a fish, a really, really big fish on a fly too. All right, back over here, Caleb. The 5th thing you'll need when you go fly fishing is some other small little tools, okay? You don't need a big old backpack for having just a few flies, okay? You just got your kit. You're going to need a few other things. First thing you're going to use or need, these right here. Most of you better have this in your house right now. These are toenail clippers, okay? Some nippers. That's for cutting the fly line, okay? Do not be biting fly line or any kind of fishing line, okay? Ruin your teeth. Working with really, really small flies, you're going to need something that's really precise. Second thing you need, because we're using really tiny hooks, is a pair of forceps, little bitty pliers. You know, work with little bitty hooks, you need a little set of pliers. All right. Eventually, you use a dry fly long enough, the fly that sits on top, it's eventually going to start to sink, okay? We don't want that. We want to be fishing on top of the water. We want to see that fish come up and destroy that fly, right? So a lot of people will use this gink stuff. There's different brands of it. But this is just something that you can put on your dry flies to keep it floating. Just like you have bobber fishing in your conventional fishing that you've always done, we have bobbers for fly fishing too. They just happen to be a little smaller. So we've got these little sticky pads that you can put on there. They work just like bobbers. They suspend your line just like bobbers. The last and most probably important tool that you'll need is these right here, all right? Pair of sunglasses. Now, yes, you're going to be outside. Of course, they can keep you from getting blinded by the sun. That's why we wear them. But in fly fishing, there's actually another reason we wear them. When we're casting a fly rod, and you're going to see this in a minute, when you're casting that fly rod, that little bitty hook that might be the size of a dime is flying through the air, and sometimes it's whizzing right past your head. Well, lots of people, if you took a crankbait on your bass fishing rod and swung it right beside their head, they probably wouldn't appreciate that. So when you're fly fishing, just to make sure you get used to it and just so you stay safe, you need a pair of glasses, because when that fly goes flying past your head at 90 miles an hour, that little bitty hook could potentially hit you, and we want to protect your eyes. So make sure when you go out, you have some sunglasses, not just for the looks, not just for the sun, but for your protection too. All right, so what we're going to do, I said there were 6 things. There is one more thing. Can anybody guess what is the number one thing, no matter what kind of fishing you do, what's the number one thing you need to go fishing? What's that? First correct answer to Nancy gets my ever-loving respect.
Somebody says tackle box, got the sunglasses, got their license, got their pole. Yourself, patience, a license.
Okay, somebody was really close when they said themselves. All right, think of the really basic. What do you need to go fix? You need, what are you after? Somebody said it?
There goes somebody said, Sierra said a lake, I think.
Oh, wait, there you go.
I may have picked it up.
It's going to be really hard if you're just going to go out to the middle of the playground like we are now and catch a fish, okay? So here's a second. We're going to walk out to the playground. There's not going to be any water there. I'm not actually fishing there. I'm just going to show you how to cast. But yeah, so to recap our 6 things, you need 1, a fly rod. Make sure it's cheap. 2, a fly reel. Make sure it's really cheap. 3, if you want to spend a little more money on line, because it's really important, you'll see why here in a minute. You can spend a little more money on that, but if you get in a kit, that's fine too. You'll need flies. These are really simple. A lot of people like fly fishing because you can actually make your own lures. Every fly that you saw a minute ago is something that you can hand make yourself. So that's why a lot of people like fly fishing. Number 5, your little bitty tools, few things, not a lot, and make sure you have your sunglasses and yeah, some water. So hopefully this sounds really, really simple. It is really simple. And a lot of people get discouraged with the fly casting. That's what we're going to go over next. So give us just a few seconds to get out there. We'll show you how to make your first cast when you get your fly rod. All right, Nancy, take it away till we get out there.
All right, guys. So I'm going to bring some of these questions back to DJ in a minute because he is our fly fisherman. Although by listening to him and earlier this week, I learned to cast a fishing pole for the very first time. So he's going to be able to show that to you in just a minute. As far as what he recommends, because he's done it a lot, I'm just now learning, which is kind of cool. I'll let him answer those questions here in just a second. Is there any camp questions real quick while these guys move outside so they can throw that rod around or throw that reel around? I do appreciate those of you kind of keeping it cool in the chat today.
Okay. This is only how far.
No questions at the moment. So while they're so question, DJ. I think it was Alex asked. Yeah, it's Alex. He wants to know what is your favorite stuff. Basically, your favorite maybe lure. What do you recommend if you were starting maybe?
Okay, you're starting out, and you're just going to look at the flies in your local tackle store. Around here in Kentucky, because there's not a lot of people that do like to fly fish all the time, you're probably not going to see too many. You're going to see some poppers. If you're only interested in catching bluegill, maybe a few small bass, those poppers are just fun. You might find them a little hard to cast when you start out, but those poppers you'll quickly learn how to cast and you'll quickly catch fish on. So if I was just starting out today, going to Walmart and I buy this little tackle kit, yeah, it's probably going to come with a few poppers, a few little flies. Anything that looks like something a fish might eat, anything that looks buggy, probably just fine. What else we got?
Someone asked me a while ago and I lost track of it. Can you go over again the rods a little bit? Because they're asking, would it make a difference on what rod they use?
Okay. Like I said, most 90% of all the fly fishing you will ever do in your life will be on a 5, 6, 4, somewhere in that category. From 4 to 6 weight, that's going to handle almost everything that you're going to use. The only reason that we use 4 to 6 weights is because the flies that we may be using are really small. The bigger the fly you get, the heavier fly line and the heavier fishing pole you get. So if you're going to go out tuna fishing in the ocean, right, you can fly fish for tuna, but you're going to have flies that are that big, and you're going to have like a 12, 13, 14, 15 weight. If you're just bass fishing, you could probably get away with everything you're going to bass fish with a 6 weight rod. So just remember, big flies require big, heavy rods and big, heavy lines. And you're going to see why here in just a second when we start casting, because this fly line is going to be like your bobber. When you go fishing with a normal bobber, rig. The weight of that bobber throws your worm or whatever it is out to where the fish are. In fly fishing, this is what throws the fly out there. This is what throws our bait out there, is this big, heavy line. We're not really keeping the fly above the ground or above the water in the air. We're usually using this line to keep it there. So when we cast, all we're casting in fly fishing is this line. So getting back to her question though, when you start out, just get this simple tackle kit till you really learn and get a feel for what it is. Anything else?
Nope, I think we got them all remote,
All right,
DJ.
good deal.
You're going to show them how to do
All right.
this.
So when you start out, I'll turn the other way because I'm right-handed. When you start out fly fishing, all right, you're going to need to learn how to fly cast. Now, when you do this, a lot of people make it way too complicated. Like Nancy said, I was actually teaching her a few days ago, and first time she'd ever cast. And a lot of times, the people like her, they just get to going too fast, and they want to put a bunch of power into it because they fished their whole life. They know how to fish. They know how to cast. But when it comes to fly fishing, here's my big key tip to casting. Be lazy, all right? No one is ever going to tell you that, ever. I am telling you that. Be lazy when it comes to your fly casting. All right, so we got our rod set up. Oh, and I did want to mention that. So let me mention the setup real quick. Get my fly line and all this, all right? So we get to our spot. We're getting ready to go fishing. We've got our rod, attached our reel. Reel's already got all the backing and the line and the leader, all that stuff that we need is right here already. And a lot of people, they'll just take the end of their tippet into their leader, and they'll just start going like this up the guides, just like you've lined any other rod before, right? We've all done this. Well, in fly fishing, when you try to do this, what's going to happen is you're going to get all the way up to the end, and then the wind's going to catch this line, and here's what happens. Whoop! And it goes all the way back down. Now I have to do all this all over again, okay? The weight of that fly line is going to keep it up in the air. But if you're trying to put it on your rod, it's also going to cause it to give you lots of headaches. So when you do put your line on your rod, make a loop, all right? Everybody see the loop? Make the loop, shove it through the eyes of the rod. That way, if you drop it, you don't have to do everything all over again. It's amazing. All right, so I'm going to line all this up. And it'll get harder as I get further and further away. And this is 9 feet. So Kaylin will stop stepping on the fly line. It'll be like easy. But she's a good camera person. She works really hard. She's good at her job. All right, so we pull off our line. And this is important. When you start fly fishing, make sure you get all of the line and the leader out of the rod guides before you get started. If not, you're going to have lots of headaches. All right, so got the line out. Now, I don't want you to start out with a lot of line. When you start your fly casting, just get you a little line out. Not much, about 15, 20 feet of line. When you grab this rod, I want you to grab it like you're shaking somebody's hand, all right? Or you're grabbing a hammer. Your thumb's going to be on top, finger's going to wrap around. You don't want to hold it really tight, all right? You're not squeezing the death out of it, okay? You want to choke up on it. A lot of people, if you've ever played baseball before, you've been told to choke up on the bat. Well, you choke up on a fly rod too. This hand is your dominant hand, okay? The hand that you write with is usually most people's casting hands. And then the line, you want to hold on to it, but you don't want to hold on to it with this hand, right? You want to hold on to it with your opposite hand. This one's not going to do much today. We're just starting out. We're not going to talk too much about the line hand. The fly cast, when you're casting motion, when we do make a cast, it's actually 2 casts. We're going to make a back cast behind us, and then we're going to get a line out, and then we're going to sling it forward, okay? Our normal cast is pretty much just like you would any other cast. You're going to go back to about the 1:30 position. If your hand was a clock, 1 o'clock would be over here. 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock would be right about here. When we do this, when we're making this cast, the motion is exactly like if you're throwing a paper airplane, okay? Remember, I said you have to be really lazy. If you take your paper airplane, you throw it as hard as you can, it's going to go crashing down in front of you, okay? So we don't want that. We want a nice paper airplane cast. You're going to pull back to 1 o'clock, make a quick hard stop, and then we're going to accelerate forward, and we're going to release right about here. Now, when we're fishing, we don't want to release the rod, okay? But we do want to stop here and stop here. So there's three things that we want to do when we make a cast. First thing we want to do, we want this rod to bend. That's what that line does. It bends this rod. This rod is made to do that. When it's bent, it's called loading, all right? What happens is there's a lot of, and I'm going to use a really physics word today. There's a lot of potential energy. And that energy that's built up by that rod bending is going to cause that line to shoot out. So we're fly fishing, we're casting back. When we make that hard stop at 1 o'clock, that fly line is going to pull back behind us. And the weight of that line is going to bend the rod. So now when I let go, when I send this thing back forward, the energy is going to release and it's going to send that fly line right out in front. It's going to lay out nice and straight, and that's what we want. We want that line to be nice and straight. We want to get our fly to where that fish is. Now, the reason we have to do this is because that fly we're using, some of you saw them, they're about the size of, a dime. Well, if you take just a little piece of feather and you try to throw it, you are never going to be able to throw it 30 feet. So that's why we have to have this line. This line acts as your bobber. It's a really, really long bobber that we're going to keep in the air, and we're going to make it deliver our fly out there. All right, so there's 3 things. First thing was bending that rod. The second thing is we want a hard stop, okay? We want to accelerate, go really, really fast, and then we stop. And then we go really, really fast, and then we stop. Don't want to go way back here to 3 o'clock. We don't want to go way over here to 9 o'clock. We want to keep it at about 1 to 11, all right? Hard stop at 1, hard stop at 11. Third thing is you want this rod tip, that right there, to go in as straight as the line as possible, okay? Straight as possible. If we do that, it's going to make us have a really, really, really good loop, and it's going to be able to help us control that line. That fly is going to go where we want to. You make a nice straight line. If you don't, and Nancy actually had this problem, when you get to going real fast, you don't pay attention to where that rod's going. A lot of times you pull that rod all the way back to 3, and if you'll see it, making a nice big arch, all right? That rod tip is going in a half circle. We don't want that. We want to stop at 1, and we want to stop at 11. If we do that, we make it a hard stop, that fly line is going to stay almost straight. That rod tip is going to go in almost a straight line. So when you do make your fly cast, first cast is going to make a back cast. It's going to go back. It's going to stop at 1. That will be 1 cast. When that fly line almost stretches all the way out, we're going to pull forward. We're going to stop at 11, and that fly line is going to go forward to where we want it to go, all right? So pretty simple. Really, really famous fly fisherman, okay? His name was Lefty Kreh. He's really, really famous. He said the easiest type of casting to teach a kid, most of you are kids, all right? Easiest type to teach a kid is fly fishing because it's real simple. You stop at 1, you stop at 11. That's it. And it doesn't have to be powerful. Just stop at 1, stop at 11. Stop at 11. 1, 11. Now, when you look, and hopefully she can see that on the camera, that fly line is staying up in the air. It's staying about eye level in the front, eye level in the back. If you go too far, you end up doing this. And this is what a lot of beginners get into. they get into going too far, and that line starts making a U. You can also cast to the side. You go like this, you are still making a straight line. So you can cast out to the side. But what we don't want is that rod tip to not go in a straight line. If you start curving back around you, that fly line is going to start curving around you. And Kaylin's really scared right now, but there's no hook on there, and she kind of knows that. So
I'm going to come around this way.
Fly around. See that?
Maybe to use the building as a dark background.
All right. Now I want to try to yell because we don't have a speaker. But you want to keep a nice straight line. If you don't keep a straight line, that line wraps around us. It's going to be really hard to control this line. But if you keep it nice and straight, you don't wrap it around you, that fly line is going to be more controlled. You're going to be able to put it where you want to. All right. So get on this side so you can see it better. When you make that last cast, so we make a back cast, we make a front cast. We don't want that line smacking the water each time we make a cast like this. We only want that fly to land exactly where we want to. So sometimes we have to do this thing called shoot line. So you strip out a little bit of line, grab the line with your line hand. You want to hold it just like this. For most of your casting, that's what you'll be doing. But when you go to need more line out there, you can open your hand just a little bit. Now, on the front cast, that second cast you make, as you get to 11 o'clock, just open your hand. So, like that. Line comes out, it goes a little further. If you don't let line out, you're going to smack the water. It's going to make a big commotion. You're probably not going to catch any fish. Now, the problem comes when you're out there fishing in the real world. We don't fish in the middle of a kickball field. So there's probably some trees behind it. Right now, behind me, there's a building, right? If I try to cast behind me, it's going to smack that building. All right? It's going to, if it's actually a tree, my fly could get caught in the tree. You're going to spend a lot of time climbing in trees. We don't like that. So in order to make a cast when something's behind us, we actually just do half a cast. It's called a roll cast. What you'll do, if you get out to this side, you see me a little better. All right. On a roll cast, instead of going all the way behind you, we keep the line on the water. We're going to bend this rod till it's about 1 o'clock. We're going to make a D. You see that line makes a D. Then all we have to do, we don't have to cast behind us. We can just cast forward. We can go straight from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock and then follow through to the water. That gets our line out there. Roll casts are great if there's something behind you. Only problem is you can't make really, really long casts with the roll cast. So you get those two casts down. You remember to stop. You remember to accelerate forward and stop. You get those stops down. Be really lazy about it. Don't put a lot of power into it. Fly fishing, fly casting is really easy. So now what we're going to do, now that we've demonstrated casting, we're going to go hopefully down to the water. We're going to send it back to Nancy. Me and Kaylin's going to hop in the golf cart, go down the water, and show you what it looks like on the water. While we're doing that, get your questions ready. If you have any more questions, I know it's kind of complicated for the first time, but it is really fun when you get into it. So get your questions ready, and we'll see you on the water.
All right, guys, they're going to transition here and move down to the lake. We had to start up here at the building today because it's really windy here. I don't know what it's like at your all's house, but it's really windy here today. And so if he'd gotten all those flies and different things out on the table like he had a while ago, they definitely have been all over the ground. So we started out inside, but these guys are going to move down to the lake and hopefully show you this in action, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything comes out. DJ will actually catch a couple of fish. You can watch his golf cart take off right there. So a couple of things here, guys. We'll get back into the fly fishing questions for DJ in a minute, because honestly, this is a new one for me, and it looks complicated. But since, really, last week we were out here practicing a little bit, and he taught me how to do it for the first time. I had never done it because maybe I'm a little bit like some of you guys, where it looks complicated, it looks hard, it doesn't look like it's something you can do. And I hadn't tried it before because, I don't know, I just didn't do it. And after he showed me how to do it and talked to me like he was sharing with you guys, it's not so hard. And actually, it's kind of fun to do it. It's a little bit more challenging, a little bit more fun. Then some of the other, just throwing a bobber out there and watching that bobber, that can be fun too. I really like doing it, and I've been afraid to try it before. So I'm going to save the camp questions, save the fishing questions for him here in just a minute. So what camp are we at? We are at Camp Curry. So why are we always at Camp Curry? It's just kind of how our scheduling has gone. We are definitely going to hit the other camps. We're going to spend one more week at Camp Curry next week, and then we're going to start jumping across the state. So you all that are from the central part of the state or the eastern part of the state, you're going to see Camp Wallace and Camp Webb in the background as well. It just happens to be the way our schedule worked out, that's the reason we've been at Curry for the first few weeks here. Is fly fishing more convenient than regular fishing? Well, it could be if you've got the equipment and stuff for it. I really thought it was going to be harder than what it was. I mean, that was my hang up, is I really thought it was going to be harder than what it was. But after he showed me and we stood here and did it a couple times, it's way easier than I ever thought. And it's definitely something I'm going to try. What are we learning next week? Next week, you got to put it with me. I'm going in front of the camera next week, and we're going to talk a little about maybe setting up a campsite in your backyard and some fun things we can do maybe right there in your own backyard outside next week. That's what we're going to, so we'll be here at Curry, but you got to put up with me here in a few minutes, next week. So a couple camp things though. One, if you guys haven't been on your camping site here in the last couple of days, there's been something new added. So you know when you go to camp, one of the favorite things at camp is a talent show. So we're going to have a virtual talent show. So it's going to be your chance to show off. There is now a link on there. So where you would have gone on your campaign webpage and seen archery and gun safety and all those different ones we've been doing, you can actually go on there now and see a link for the talent show. And you can get on there and figure out how, if you want to be in our virtual talent show, how to do that. So let's jump back down here. Let me get Kayla and them back in the mix here, because I see they're down at the lake now.
We made it.
Yes, and there's DJ. Go for it.
And if you're any of my kids at camp, you know I'm not the best golf cart driver in the world. So we didn't hit anything. We made it down here. We're all in one piece. And more importantly, the rod's in one piece. So we've got everything set up. I showed you how to set it up a second ago. When you get to the water, the first thing you want to do is get a lot of, I got a few. No, I got two. All right. The first thing you want to do is get a lot of line out on the water. Okay, so get your line out. Not holding on to it, just getting it on the water. So pull back here like we're doing a normal roll cast. And we're going to get that line hopefully off the bottom and out in front of us, okay? That would be a nice roll cast. The line's all the way straight on the water. Now, we're not using a dry fly. We're using a wet fly. So that fly is not going to be on the surface. If you're using a dry fly, it's going to sit on the surface, and you're going to know when you get a bite. So you get it out there, you made your cast. Now you're going to want to retrieve it. We're on a lake. It's a really flat water. If you're on a river, if you're on a stream, when you cast your line out there, the water's going to move your fly. But in a lake situation, most of us in Kentucky, we're going to be on lakes or slow-moving rivers. You're going to have to retrieve that line. What you do, take your little trigger finger right here, thumbs on top, got your trigger finger, and all you do is open that trigger finger up a little bit, and you start to strip line. It's called stripping line. When you do this, and you get a bite, you'll know about it. Because a fish is going to pull your line that way. You're going to know he's on there. If you do get a bite, just lift up on the rod tip. Lift up on your rod tip. It doesn't have to be like you're bass fishing, okay? You don't have to rear down and pull like that. If you do, and you got a fish that you can easily pull out of the water, that fish is going to be up in somebody's yard, okay? So we don't want to do that. We want to keep the fish in the lake. We don't want to send him flying through just like we're launching a rocket, okay? So, I want to show you the fly that I'm using. It's one that we saw earlier. Just a little San Juan worm. Looks just like the red worm you might fish with under a bobber. But the good thing about this fly fishing is when you get really, really good at it, and you're on a place where the fish are really, really biting, and you know exactly where they're biting. Once you get the length down, say that fish is right there, okay? When I get really good at it and I miss a fish, when you're good at fly fishing, you already have the exact amount of line you need out on the water. So when you go to make your cast, you throw it right back, that lure is going to land in the exact same spot, okay? When you get to your spot, especially when you're fly fishing, the first thing you might want to do, look behind you, okay? I've got some trees way back in the distance, but probably as far as I'm casting, they're not going to be getting in my way. So if you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to climb in trees and get your fly out, you might want to look behind you first, because the amount of line that goes in front of you is the same amount of line that goes back behind you. Remember, we want a good hard stop at 11. We want a real good hard stop, real good hard stop at 1 and a real good stop at 11. Once you go like this, you lose a lot of your accuracy. It also hits the fly on the water really, really hard, and it begins to start scaring the fish. So I'll make a few casts. We're not going to stay too long at it. We'll get some more questions here in just a second, but we'll see if I can't catch a fish real fast, hopefully to show you how it actually does work. All right, so get my line out there. Hard 1, 11, 1, 11, 1, 11. When I'm ready to go, just release the line and it falls on the water. Now this is a wet fly, so I want it to sink down just a little bit. Worm's going to be closer to the bottom. Once I think it's there, I'm just going to slowly retrieve my line. A worm can't move that fast. He just kind of squirms through the water. So hopefully, I'll get a tug on the line. If you do get a tug on the line, simply stop the line with your finger, raise the rod tip. It'll set the hook in the fish, okay? You don't have to rear back like your bass fishing. All right. Another key point, try to keep the rod tip close to the water, okay? It's okay. Oh, got hung. Good thing, if you ever do get hung, and this happens a lot, if you ever do get hung, you don't want to try to bend the rod. You do that, the weight of whatever you're stuck to, and obviously I'm stuck to a branch, the weight of that could break your rod. So we don't want to do that. If you do get hung, you want to point it straight at whatever you're hung on and pull it back. Now I got a really big fish. Really, really, really big fish.
Stick fish.
And then you go out in the water and you grab it. This is like the biggest stick bass that we've caught all day.
Nice catch, DJ.
Awesome catch for me the first time. Love doing live programming. We're gonna let him go back. He's not a very, very good eating fish. We're going out there, try it again. One less stick in the way.
All right. Hey, DJ, how about we ask some questions as you're trying to catch a fish for us?
Go ahead. That sounds great.
All right. So there's a camp question in the mix. How old do you have to be to go to one of our camps? So to go to one of our camps, you have to be actually come to camp is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So if you're going to be in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade next year, you're going to be eligible to come to camp with us. And again, depending on where you might live, you might come to Camp Curry, where we're at today. If you're in the south central part of the state, you might go to Camp Wallace. If you're in the eastern part of Kentucky, you might be going to Camp Webb. Let's see. I'm trying to catch back up here. Some of these different questions. Do you have to be in the talent show? Of course not, but the talent show is an option. The only ones who can be in the talent show, though, are the ones who are participating in our camp-in experience. So if somebody's not in camp-in, they're not going to be able to put an act in for the talent show. I'm going to be 12, Colin, so you're going to be going to 7th grade. So we are working on an option for 7th graders. Since we kind of got gypped out this year, we're hoping to pull something off for 7th graders, maybe a special week for you all to go to camp with us just for 7th graders. Let's see. Fishing questions while DJ's in there trying to catch something. How much longer is a fly fishing rod versus a regular fishing rod, DJ?
All right, so most of the rods that you're going to use, like your bait casting rods for bass fishing or your spinner, the one that I'm using right now, this is a St. Croix rod. It's got a fish. This rod is only about a 7.5 feet. which is longer than most of your normal fishing rods. But again, if you're starting out, usually the longer the rod, about 9 feet is about average, which is about 2 feet more than your standard fishing rod today. The reason we need that length is because we're trying to keep that line, that big heavy line, off the ground and deliver it out there. So about 9 feet is what you need to get starting out. Sorry, I missed the fish.
Hey, DJ.
Uh-huh.
Someone wants to know, what is a fly, Sierra wants to know, what is a fly fishing rod made of?
Most of your fly fishing rods are just like your conventional bass rods. They're made out of graphite. There are some that are made out of fiberglass, but most of the ones you're going to buy, just like any other fishing rod, most of them today are made out of graphite.
And Donovan's trying to figure out your secrets. He wants to know, where's the best place to fish?
Well, that depends what you're trying to fish for. If I'm catfishing, Kentucky Lake's great. And your bigger, non-moving lakes, you're trying to trap fish, you want cold water, okay? Trout, if they get over 70 degrees, they're going to die off. If you're bass fishing, I like to bass fish a lot. I'm not going to tell you my secret spots. Not going to happen. Sorry. But if you're bass fishing, any kind of structure, you're going to find rocks, or we got a big stump right here laid out. Anywhere that fish can hide and ambush bait. Those big fish that you like to catch, the really, really big ones, they're not going to be swimming out in the middle of the lake. They're going to be hiding behind something. So whether you're on a lake, river, find something that a big fish can hide behind. That's probably where they're going to be. What else we got?
Asking if fluorocarbon, Jackson's asking, is fluorocarbon good to use as backing? And some of them don't know what fluorocarbon is.
Okay, so obviously that guy likes to fish a lot, okay, knows about fluorocarbon. There are usually 2 types of normal fishing line. You go to any kind of sporting goods store, you're going to see those conventional fishing rods. They're going to be lined, those reels are going to be lined with this clear line. Now, for the most part, what we've always used traditionally has been monofilament line. Now, monofilament's great. It stretches a lot. That's what this leader and tippet are made out of. They're made out of monofilament. It's your normal fishing line. What fluorocarbon is, fluorocarbon looks almost identical, but it doesn't have that stretch. It's also a lot clearer underwater. There is one drawback, though, if you are fishing with fluorocarbon line. It's because that fluorocarbon line is a little denser, it causes it to sink. Monofilament like this is going to float. So if I'm using something like a topwater lure or topwater fly, I don't want to use fluorocarbon, okay? As far as backing goes, it's all about the same. It's, I don't even have any on this one because it's a really small reel. But the backing that goes on the reel first, it's usually made out of nylon. It's just a string, okay? Think of it as braided fishing line. That's that cloth material. Then goes on your fly line, the colored stuff. Then goes on your tapered leader. And then eventually your tippet and fly. So fluorocarbon, you don't want to use it as backing. You want to reserve that for just if you can't find any backing in your store, just go get you some braided fishing line. That'll work just fine. All right. Anything else?
All right. I think we're down to the last couple minutes, man. We've been here for about an hour now. Annabelle's asking, do you have to go hunting to go to this camp? Absolutely not. A lot of us do hunt, a lot of us do like to fish, and a lot of our activities are kind of geared toward teaching you a little bit more about some of the different things you can do outside, but you absolutely do not have to go hunting or fishing to enjoy being here at camp with us. Let's see, guys, chill on the chat. Some of you getting a little too rowdy in there. Let me take care of anyone saying things that they shouldn't be saying. So Alex wants to know, DJ, if you're actually DJ.
I do not DJ on the side. No, I'm the original one. There's a lot of contenders out there that like to play music. I'm the best there is, and that's it.
There we go. Hey guys, we're going to wrap this up. We've been going for quite a while. Hopefully DJ will be down there and catch us a fish here in a little bit. Do want to give you a reminder, we'll be sending out tomorrow. There'll be an email going out about next week's Zoom. If everything goes well with downloading this video in a few minutes, if you know someone didn't get a chance to watch, or there's something in there you want to re-watch because you were trying to learn, trying to figure out how it all works, then the video hopefully will be posted up just in a few days on the Camp-In webpage. And as I mentioned a while ago, if you are part of our Camp-In venture this year, something new that's been added this week is the chance to perform in our virtual talent show. And by the way, guys, there is prizes being given away. I don't know what the prizes are. I haven't seen them, but I do know that there are prizes involved. So a little motivation, a little extra there if you want to show off for us a little bit. Guys, thank you all for being cool here today. It's good seeing some familiar faces, even though we don't get to talk a lot. It is nice seeing some of those smiling faces every week, and hopefully we'll see lots of you all again next week. Guys, see you all then.